Whatsoever exists without my knowledge exists without my consent. In the entire canon of Western literature, there is perhaps no sentence more chilling, nor any character who embodies it more completely than Judge Holden. When enthusiasts of the disturbing or terrifying gather to discuss the most haunting figures of all time, the names of slashers and demons usually lead the pack. But for those who have traversed the blood-soaked pages of Cormac McCarthy's 1985 masterpiece, Blood Meridian, there is only one name that matters: the Judge. Imagine a man 7 feet tall. He is entirely hairless, no eyebrows, no lashes, a smooth, pale dome of a head. His skin is described as being like boiled sweets or enormous white slugs. He is a polyglot, a dancer, a fiddler, a scientist, and a cold-blooded murderer of children. He does not appear to age. He never sleeps. Most unsettlingly, he seems to possess a level of competence that borders on the supernatural. He is the second in command of the infamous Glanton Gang, a band of scalp hunters who turned the mid-19th century American West into a landscape of unimaginable carnage. Our eyes through this hellscape belong to the Kid, a teenage runaway from Tennessee. But as the novel progresses, the Kid fades into the background, becoming a mere witness to the Judge's overwhelming presence. Today, we are going to dissect the Judge. We are going to look at the 3 primary masks he wears: the devil, the Gnostic Archon, and the psychological shadow. A heavy warning: we are dealing with Blood Meridian. This means spoilers, but more importantly, it means discussing extreme violence and the darkest reaches of human depravity. McCarthy did not write this book for the faint of heart, and this essay follows suit. Proceed with caution. The modern Mephistopheles. The most immediate interpretation of Judge Holden is that he is the literal devil, not a cartoonish version with horns and a pitchfork, but a modern Mephistopheles steeped in the tradition of Milton and Goethe. 1. The world as a metaphysical battlefield. McCarthy's prose is famously biblical. He doesn't just describe a desert, he describes a wilderness where the wrath of God lies sleeping. The landscape itself has agency. Mountains are compared to the backs of sea beasts, and the sun is a malevolent eye. By imbuing the material world with this mythic status, McCarthy signals to the reader that this isn't just a historical Western, it is a metaphysical battle. Within this framework, Holden acts as the ultimate tempter. He is first encountered by the Kid in a revival tent, where Holden, completely unprovoked, falsely accuses a preacher of being a pedophile and a fugitive. The mob, fueled by the Judge's charisma, destroys the tent and nearly kills the preacher. Later, when asked how he knew these things about the man, the Judge simply laughs and admits he'd never seen the man before in his life. He sows chaos for the sake of the harvest. 2. The Covenant of Blood. Throughout the novel, Holden is associated with satanic motifs. He is a master of the fiddle, a classic instrument of the devil in folklore. More importantly, he is a deal maker. We are told that the gang leader, John Joel Glanton, has entered into a terrible covenant with the Judge. We never see the contract signed in blood, but we see the results. The Judge's salvation is always a poisoned gift. Consider the scene on the mountain where the gang is surrounded by Apache warriors and out of gunpowder. Holden directs the men to a volcano, gathers bat guano and sulfur, and, in a scene resembling an unholy ritual, manufactures gunpowder to save them. He saves their lives, yes, but in doing so, he binds their souls to his cause. As the ex-priest Tobin notes, after that moment, the gang was never the same. They ceased being mercenaries and became something more akin to a traveling cult of death. 3. The Usurper of the Throne. In Christian theology, St. Thomas Aquinas argues that human judges only have authority insofar as they align with God's law. To call oneself the judge in an absolute sense is an act of supreme pride, the original sin of Lucifer. By naming himself judge, Holden is attempting to supplant the divine. He rejects the moral codes of the Decalogue and replaces them with a new commandment: war is God. He targets the innocent, children, and the mentally disabled, not because he has to, but because they represent the unfallen state of man. To the devil, innocence is a provocation. It is a piece of God's creation that must be defiled to prove that his own nihilism is the only truth. The Gnostic Gospel of Cormac. While the satanic reading is popular, there is a more complex academic interpretation pioneered by scholars like Leo Dougherty and Petra Mundik. The Gnostic interpretation. 1. Understanding Gnosticism. To understand this, we have to look at Gnosticism, a collection of ancient religious beliefs that posit that the material world is an evil trap. In this view, the God of the Old Testament is actually a demiurge, a lesser, often malicious deity who created the physical universe to imprison human souls. Our only hope is gnosis, knowledge of the true immaterial God beyond this world. 2. The world of mirages. In Blood Meridian, the desert is often described as an illusory space. The characters see fata morgana, mirages, and heat haze that distorts reality. Mundik argues that McCarthy describes a world that is semi-agential evil. The sun doesn't just shine, it pours down a white heat that feels like a deliberate attack. The judge is the only character who is truly at home in this nightmare. While the rest of the gang suffers from fear, anxiety, or anger, Holden remains strangely serene. He is the master of the counterfeit reality. There is a striking scene where the kid sees the judge in a vision, holding a coin of his own minting. This symbolizes Holden as the overseer of a false world, a literal archon whose job is to prevent the characters from ever finding a path to the spiritual gnosis. 3. The divine spark and the hammering of the earth. Gnosticism teaches that despite being in a fallen world, we carry a divine spark. In the novel, this manifests as small, almost invisible acts of kindness. A group of Mexican women cleaning and caring for a mentally disabled man. The kid's refusal to kill the ex-priest Tobin, even when Holden commands it. The judge's mission is to extinguish these sparks. He believes that to exist is to be noted in his ledger. He spends his days sketching artifacts, animals, and people into his book, and then destroying the originals. He claims that whatever exists in creation, without my knowledge, exists without my consent. By recording and destroying, he is asserting total dominion over the material realm, effectively acting as its local deity. The epilogue of the novel, which is famously cryptic, describes a man striking fire out of the rock with a steel tool. This is often interpreted as the persistence of the divine spark. Despite the judge's victory at the end of the book, he cannot stop the human impulse to create light in the darkness, even if that light is fleeting. The eternal trickster. If we step away from the supernatural, we find a psychological interpretation. The judge is the eternal trickster, a figure found in almost every mythology, from Loki to the modern-day O'Brien in Orwell's 1984. 1. The false shepherd. Holden is the personification of might makes right. He offers the gang members a psychological out. He tells them that war is the ultimate trade because it requires the total engagement of the soul. He provides an intellectual justification for their lowest impulses. This is the trick. He promises them freedom, but he delivers them into a state of total slavery to their own violence. By the middle of the book, the gang is no longer even collecting scalps for money. They are killing for the sake of the act itself. They have become reflections of the judge. 2. The ego's ultimate fantasy. Holden represents the ultimate egoistic fantasy. What if I could be completely selfish, completely cruel, and yet be the smartest, strongest person in the room? He is untroubled by conscience. He represents the shadow in the Jungian sense, the parts of ourselves we suppress. But in Blood Meridian, the shadow has stepped out into the daylight and taken command of the ship. He promises the gang that they can master death by becoming its ally. It's a classic Faustian bargain. If you are the one doing the killing, you don't have to fear being the one who dies. But as the massacre at the Yuma Crossing shows, death eventually comes for the killers too. The judge, however, survives. He wanders out of the ashes of the gang, unmoved by the deaths of his friends, because he was never their friend. He was only ever the spirit of their destruction. The dance and the end. The ending of Blood Meridian is one of the most debated finales in literature. Years after the gang is destroyed, the kid, now the man, encounters the judge in a saloon. The judge tells him that he was the flaw in the vessel, that because the kid showed a pale sub-threshold of amity, small amounts of mercy, he never truly belonged to the dance. 1. The death of the kid. The judge leads the man to an outhouse, and while we don't see the act, it is implied that the judge murders him in a particularly horrific fashion. Afterward, the judge returns to the saloon to dance. He plays the fiddle, he laughs, and he says that he will never die. Many see this as the judge's final victory, but we can look at it differently. The fact that the judge had to physically kill the kid is an admission that he couldn't corrupt him. The kid's soul remained unjudged by Holden's standards. The judge could kill the body, but he couldn't win the covenant. 2. The philosophy of war. To the judge, war is the testing of the will. He believes that which lacks the discretion to maintain its own existence has no right to exist. This is a radical, dark interpretation of Darwinism and Thomas Hobbes's state of nature. In Hobbes's Leviathan, the war of all against all is a state of misery that humanity must escape through social contracts. The judge argues the opposite. He says the war is the social contract. It is the only honest way for men to interact. To Holden, any attempt at peace or law is a counterfeit of the true bloody nature of reality. So what is the ultimate point of a character like Judge Holden? 1. The mirror of reflection. Great fiction doesn't give us facts in the way a science textbook does. Instead, it provides emotional verisimilitude. We react to Holden with a mix of fascination and horror because we recognize his philosophy. We see it in history, we see it in the news, and if we are honest, we see the seeds of it in our own moments of anger and resentment. The judge is a negative lesson. By seeing the absolute end point of nihilism and violence, we are encouraged to turn back toward the divine spark. 2. The magic of the open end. McCarthy leaves Holden vague for a reason. If we knew for a fact he was the devil, he would be less scary. He would just be a monster in a story. But because he might just be a man, or he might be a god, he remains lodged in our minds. He forces us to train our mental muscles and reflect on what we believe about justice, mercy, and the nature of the world. If you see him as an external enemy, he teaches you to be like the kid, to resist, however quietly, against the tide of brutality. If you see him as an internal temptation, he alerts you to the judge that lives in your own shadow, waiting for a moment of despair to offer you a deal. In the end, Holden is right about one thing. He is dancing. He is dancing in the pages of the book, and he is dancing in the dark corners of human history. Our job is not to stop the dance. We probably can't, but to decide whether or not we are going to join in. Cormac McCarthy's genius lies in leaving the door open. He gives us the sparks. We have to build the fire. If you want to continue exploring the darker side of philosophy, check out my video on Albert Camus and the Fall, where we look at how guilt can be used as a weapon. Until next time, stay curious and watch the horizon.